Sherry and I first met at my brother's fiance at the time, Lorette Polite, and they both was in the same class, the same dental class at Howard University. So what they did was Lorette and Sherry and a couple of other friends, they got together and decided to go to a seafood restaurant by the name of Phillips. So we was all there, and of course I was supporting my brother and supporting his fiance at the time. And I went to the buffet line, and when I came back from the buffet line, I saw this young lady talking to Lorette, which is my brother's fiance. And I saw her when she looked up, because she was bent down, and she looked up at me, and she said, and I waved at her, said, "Hey, how you doing?" And I kept on my way.
In the middle of everything, she was like, "Oh, by the way, that's Robert's brother over there." And so I waved to him, he waved, and I said to her, "Oh, he's cute." And her best friend was sitting next to her, and she was like, "Girl, he young." And she said, "He's only 21. And I was like, "Oh, he's too young for me." So I never thought anything else about it or about him.
Later on, my brother's fiance came back and told me, "Yeah, you know the young lady you saw sitting, talking to me, she said you cute and she want to talk to you."
But needless to say, Lorette being Lorette, she told him that I told him he was cute. So it kind of got all blown out of proportion, and he's thinking that I like him.
So later on that night, we went to a club called, I think it's called Busch Gardens or something like that in DC. So we went to a club, and and we was all supposed to meet there, and we was all in there. And Lorette came up back to me, which is my brother's wife now, came to me and said, "Well, Sherry's here. Sherry's here. Won't you go over there and talk to her?" Well, I'm a ladies' man, but I'm not that good at talking in the club.
Came over and he spoke, and I just remember he had on this little blue and white shirt with, it was kind of like a Hawaiian print, and he had the first top two buttons unbuttoned, so a little bit of his chest was showing. I guess he thought he was suave. And he came over and started just having general conversation with me. And the whole time in my head, I'm thinking, "Boy, you too young for me."
I'm trying to make conversation. And to me, she wasn't paying me no attention. I said, "Good gracious, what can I do to make this woman laugh?" Because I wanted her to be interested in me. So it seemed like everybody else was laughing, all her friends were laughing except me. So
the conversation, he says he's going to go and play pool, so he leaves, and then he comes back.
The reason why I wanted to go play some pool is because I didn't have nothing else to say. So I went through the club, and there was a little back area where they was playing pool. So I went back there and tried to play it off like I was getting in line to play pool. I was telling her that I don't have too much facial hair. Because I told her I was 21 at the time. So I said, I don't have any facial hair. That's the reason why, I look kind of young, whatever. It's my last name, Young. So I always say that when people say, "Do you have facial hair?" I said, "Well, my last name, Young. I don't have too much facial hair." So at that time, I didn't have none of this. It was straight bone.
"Do you have any pen and paper?" And I said, "No, I didn't have anything to write with." And he was like, "Okay, well, just get my information from my brother. I'm going to tell him to give it to you." So I said, "Okay," and we went our separate ways. I really didn't think anything else about it.
My brother called me later on that week. And he said, "Yeah, Patrick, man, guess who came up to me and talked to me?" I said, "Who?" He said, "Sherry, man. Sherry came up to me and said that she wanted your phone number and everything. She gave me your phone number and told me to tell you to call her." I said, all right. So I told my brother about the facial hair thing. He was like, "Man, why you tell her that, man? Why you tell her that?" But obviously, the game worked. It wasn't a game, but obviously my conversation was pretty good, obviously.
Passed his brother several times, and he never said anything about the number, so I didn't say anything to him. And it wasn't until maybe 2 or 3 weeks before his brother's wedding to my friend Lorette that did Robert mention anything to me. And he said, "Oh yeah, my brother told me to give you his number." And I said, "Well, just keep it, because it's, I'll see him in about 3 weeks, and I can just get it then at the wedding," because I was in their wedding. Lorette was into this black love thing, so she was just like, "Black love is so beautiful," to try to get us together. And I was staying at Lorette's best friend's house. Creates this reason why she couldn't take me to her house, and Patrick had to take me to her house.
We had this long talk the night before the wedding, and we was just talking about commitment and respect and loyalty, and what it takes to keep a relationship to work, and everything. And
we sat outside for at least an hour and a half, 2 hours, just talking, just about any and everything, about relationships. relationships and life in general, and I just thought he was a very mature person. So I did, you know, have an interest at that point. But, you know, if he told the story, I was on him from the very beginning, and I really, you know, I liked him months prior, but that's not true. But when I got back to DC, because I was living in DC at the time, I didn't hear from him. No phone call, no email, and I wasn't really sure if I should be the one that was making the first move or not. So I think maybe a month had passed, and he finally emailed. So we were on this roll of emailing back and forth, but it was really just purely platonic emails. So I really wasn't sure if he liked me or not, because it was just friendly emails, and then the friendly emails turned into smiley face cards, which I couldn't read into that either. And then eventually he just dropped off the face of the earth. I would email and there was no response back. So eventually I didn't email anymore, and he didn't either. So I say about 6 or 7 months later, I received this email out the blue saying, I'm going to be in town for my brother's graduation. I hope to see you there. And at this point, I'm like, whatever. In the beginning of the whole courtship, we were just chasing each other in the opposite direction, for lack of another explanation, because we were two peas in a pod. He was waiting on me to make the first move, and I was waiting on him to make the first move.
Anyway, later on that day, my brother and Lorette was saying, call Sherry, man, call. I said, nah, man. I said, she was mad at me at the little events. I mean, she act like she was mad, act like she didn't want to give me no love, act like she didn't want to give me no hug, man. So I ain't even gonna call her, man.
So it really took my friend Lorette to kind of bring us together, because she just really in her heart wanted to see us together. So she called me and was like, why don't you call him, and why not this and why not that? And I'm like, well, he has my number, so why can't he call me? And she was like, well, just come over my house, because I think that she was taking braids out of her hair. And she's like, pretend like you're helping me take my braids out. Pretend like you're doing my hair. And I said, no, I'm not going to do that. He can see right through that. And I said, if he wants to see me, he will call me. So he ended up leaving and coming back to town again. And in between all of this, there were still these lags in communication, which I couldn't understand. He had my number, I had his, but for whatever reason, neither one would call the other. So I started getting into these conversations with my friend Melanie and my mother about him and the fact that we weren't calling each other, and did he like me, didn't he, and what should I do? And poor Melanie, she had to listen to these conversations, and she would just tell me, you know, men are strange, and you know, sometimes you have to make the first move. And then my mother was like, well, you know, just go ahead and call him this time, and if he doesn't call you the next time, then just drop it. So I made the move, and I called, and in that conversation we had discussed him coming back to DC again, which was in July, at this point, July 2002. So in case you hadn't realized, a whole year had passed since I actually met him. We ran from each other for that long. And he came back to town by himself, and we, at that point, shared our first real date. We had went downtown, DC, on the mall, where all the monuments are, the Washington Monument, Lincoln Memorial, and we walked around, and we just had a really, really great time.
It was so amazing, and we was getting to know each other, and we was right there on the steps, the Lincoln Memorial, and you know, we started, you know, kissing right there on the Lincoln Memorial, and it was almost like a dream come true at that point. It was just, you know, it was just love right there, just that chemistry.
And that Sunday of that visit, he came with me to church, Reed Temple AME, which was the church I belonged to in DC, and I'll never forget, the sermon topic was liberation from loneliness. And so the whole sermon was just about this liberation from loneliness, and it had these scriptures that was attached to it, you know, whatever. And since I went to the early morning service, I would always take a nap when I came home. So after we came from church, I took a nap, and when I woke up, he was looking at me. And you know, it was kind of odd, because you're thinking, did I have some drool on my mouth? I mean, was I pretty when I was asleep, or what? You
know, I just looked over there, and I knew that I wanted her to be my baby. So I just looked over, and I said, you know, will you be my lady? Will you be my girl? She looked back at me, she said, yes, I will. So that's what started it all.
And that was July 21st, 2002. We've been together ever since. I mean, there were some rocks and hills and valleys in between all of that, but we made it through.
God laid on my spirit that Sherry's is to be my wife. So at that point, you know, I said, man, well, how I'm going to do this? You know, how I'm going to afford the ring and all that good stuff. So God worked it out that I afforded the ring and got the ring, and that was, you know, that was the easy part. But the hard part, that's why I had to ask, you know, Reverend Grigsby. And I said, hey, Rev, how you doing? He was like, who is this? I said, this is Patrick. He said, who? This is Patrick. So it was kind of silent for a second. And I said, it's Patrick Young, Sherry's boyfriend. He said, oh, okay, I know who you are now. I said, man, I have your daughter's hand in marriage. And he said, oh, Patrick, you should have asked me to sit down, man. You should at least ask me to sit down, man. You should have, he said, you should have warned me before you asked that question, man. You could at least give me a warning. I said, oh, I'm sorry, sir. I'm sorry, sir. I'm on the phone. And he said, yeah, man. He said, that's a beautiful thing, man. That's a beautiful thing. So he was saying this stuff when we was having a conversation, but yet he still haven't said, yes, you may have my daughter's hand in marriage. So I had to ask him one more time. So, well, you know, Reverend Chris, I said, you still haven't said anything yet. You know, can I have your hand, your daughter's hand in marriage? He said, oh, definitely, son. Yeah, definitely, young man. Yeah. So on November 24th, 2007, Thanksgiving Day, and I was planning on proposing to Sherry, and she didn't know anything about it. What we're gonna do is get everybody in a circle, and we're gonna hold hands and talk about what we're thankful for. I said, and I'm gonna be at the end of the circle. So somehow it's situated, you know, to the point where I'm the last person to say what I'm thankful for. So, you know, so Reverend Grigsby was in on it, and Rashad was in on it. I said, I'm gonna tell you guys what I'm thankful for. So I'm thankful for God and Him being the head of my life, and I said, I'm just thankful for all what He's done for me, and just thankful for the air that we're breathing, and thankful for Him down on the cross on the third, you know, rising up on the third day with all power in His hands. I said, also what I'm thankful for, and what I did was I turned to Sherry on my right, and I told her, I said, I'm thankful for Sherry being here and her inviting me. And I said, I know a lot of people have been asking, when y'all gonna get married? Y'all gonna ever get married? And all the good stuff. I said, well, the question's ends here.
He was getting a little long-winded with talking about me. So when I looked at him, I could see the seriousness in his eyes. And I knew then when I looked in his eyes that he was getting ready to propose. And my lips started quivering. And I knew that I was getting ready to cry. And I didn't want to cry because, you know, I'm not the prettiest when I cry.
I said, Sherry, I said, I love you more than the air I breathe. I said, I love you more than anything. I said, I love you more than the world. I said, you're my best friend, you're my lover, you're everything, you're God gift to me. And I went on and went on, and I told her how much I love her. And I looked around the family, I told the family, I said, in front of your family, in front of everyone, so I would like to ask you to be my wife. Her lips started quivering, you know, and I got on one knee, and she said yes. And I pulled out my ring, and Reverend Grigsby talking about, yeah, he got a gun, made everybody laugh, but it was funny.
My mind just, you know, went. I was just lost in this beautiful moment of this proposal, and he got down on one knee and asked me to marry him and become his wife. And I started to cry, and of course I said yes, and he put the most beautiful ring on my finger. I mean, I just thought he did such a great job with picking the ring out. And so I'm, you know, after it's all over with, you know, I'm crying, I'm on this, you know, this emotional high. I totally lost my appetite. I couldn't even eat after all this because I was so excited. But then it dawned on me, I'm like, did you ask my dad?
I want to say thank you to Sherry's parents. Thank you to my parents for just having us, and we want you guys just molding us and you know, teaching us the word of God. And again, when I look at Sherry, my checklist was Proverbs 31:10, and that's the checklist. Any guys, you out there looking for a woman, that's your checklist. You got to go down that list, and it says what a virtuous woman is. So what I have here, she passed the whole checklist. So I'm just blessed, man. So just want to add that again. Again, we appreciate it. We love you, those who travel. Thank you, and thank you for support, and we're going to need your support throughout the whole union. So continue to pray for us, again, continue to lift us up in your prayer, and we'll do the same for you. And we just thank you. We love you. We appreciate everything.
love you.